say a few words about the war in Ukraine. Um, of course, I want to make clear, I really, I don't want to take any side. Uh, you know, People always get upset with me no matter what side I take, and probably if I don't take sides, they also get, well, then all the sides get upset. But I want to say a few words because I want to explain how I think about it, and why I don't want to take sides, and why I think war in general is not a good thing, obviously, right? In my opinion, there are no good sides in war. The only good side in a war is whatever country stays out of it. I know there are different opinions on that, and there's the argument, but we have to help. You can't really help with weapons, can you? The only thing a weapon can do is kill people. That's what it's designed to do. So, and yes, of course, there's, now we're getting into this whole gun argument, but it's exactly the leftists that always argue like that, right? It's the leftists that want to ban guns for civilian use. Guns that are not used in military conflicts to kill people. They want to ban guns for civilian use, right? And they use that argument. They say, but a gun is designed to kill people, so guns are bad. So on the one hand, they want to take away guns for civilian use. On the other hand, the same politicians that want to take away civilian guns are now giving all kinds of horrible weapons of war to Ukraine. So basically the Western world is supplying Ukraine with weapons, and the Eastern world is supplying Russia with weapons. But my point is that it's not, maybe things are not the way they seem, and maybe there's a reason why they are hyping up that war, why both sides, are so eager to prolong this war. Why? I mean, it's pointless. Look at the map here. I mean, in how many months has it been now? It's like almost a half a year now. And what have they accomplished? Look at this map. Nothing has changed. They haven't even really gained any territory that wasn't held by the separatists to begin with. So what's the point? You'd think, oh yeah, well, Putin is stupid. Is he though? Is he stupid? So maybe there's more to this than meets the eye. Also, is it a coincidence that this happened? Just the second, that we're realizing, people are no longer afraid of the virus, and people are no longer getting needled. The moment people there's just so many people who were willing to get needled, and now basically that number has been reached, and you can't make the other people get needled, even if you take away their jobs, which has been done in my country. You lost your job if you didn't get needled. So, but even so, there was no further increase in people willing to get needled. And the moment there was no further increase, boom, the war happened. What a coincidence. So and now we have new restrictions, at least in my countries, we have new restrictions, we have shortages, we have all kinds of problems. Before, during the virus, small and medium-sized businesses were going out of business because they had to close down. Now, the moment they were allowed to reopen again, the war comes, and they have to close down again because they don't have anything to sell anymore, because they're not getting, we don't have the stuff we need to make our economy run. So there's nothing. If you go into the store now, it might be open. Now the store is allowed to open again, but you go in there, and most of the stores, at least here in Germany, are empty. at least that's increasingly what's happening. So even though they're allowed to be open now, there's nothing in there you can buy, at least in an increasing number of shops. So of course they're closing down. So I see that a lot. If I go into into the shopping district of a city, it's a ghost town. Most cities now. Everything, all the shops have closed down. So what a coincidence, right? And someone asked me why I was uploading this video here now, with Klaus Schwab, when he said, when he was boasting that Putin is one of them. Why am I uploading this now if Klaus Schwab already said that 5 years ago? Someone was asking a question like that. Well, the reason is because it's relevant now. It's especially to understand what's going on now. It's very relevant. And of course, he goes on to say that this year the World Economic Forum and Klaus has been expelling and excluding not only Putin but all Russians, and and this year Klaus has spoken out against Putin and against the war, and So he's trying to say that what Klaus said 5 years ago is irrelevant, but is it though? I mean, we all know that the World Economic Forum and Klaus, it's really about power. Some people make fun of him that Klaus is like a Bond villain, or that he's like a dictator. He sounds like a dictator, definitely. And in a way, he is. I mean, he's, because like a dictator, he's all about power. The whole thing he's doing, it's about power, and it's about ruling people. Maybe not as a dictator directly, but that's what the whole thing is about, right? And how do you rule? How do you rule people? There's this very basic and very old saying, divide and rule, So, even Roman dictators knew that in order to keep your power and in order to keep ruling, you have to divide people. If they're divided, they're weak and they can't oppose you. So how do you divide people? Well, maybe by obviously, by putting your people into opposing factions, and then have them oppose each other and fight each other, but you have your people in each of the opposing factions. And that's exactly what Klaus is doing. And that's my whole point. And that's exactly what we see happening in the Ukraine and with the war right now, at least. In my humble opinion. So it's not like Klaus suddenly started to develop a conscience, right? China has been committing genocide and persecuting religious minorities for many decades, and he never had a problem with them. He's still all buddy with them, right? They're still coming to the World Economic Forum. So it's not like Klaus suddenly developed a conscience. It's not like that at all. Yeah. But let's get back to the Ukraine war itself, because even from a purely tactical level, this doesn't make sense, and things are not the way they seem. If there was, if there was nothing more behind it, and Putin's only goal would be, to invade the Ukraine, um, then none of this makes sense. It just doesn't add up. I mean, like I said, look at this map. He has gained no territory. I mean, at least not significantly beyond the territory he already had through the separatists. So there was, there was, and it doesn't make sense. I mean, just look at this map. I mean, look at how tiny the Ukraine is and how huge Russia is. I know increasingly the Ukraine is getting help from Western countries. But still, I mean, it's not direct military aid. It's just a few weapons. And look how, I mean, you don't really see it on the map, but you all know how big Russia is and how small Ukraine is, and you all know that Russia has inherited that whole Soviet military industrial complex. When the war started, everyone was convinced Ukraine would be crushed within days. Because Russia certainly has the power to do that, and at the beginning, Ukraine wasn't getting any major weapon supplies from the West. That's only really starting now that they are really supplying them with weapons. At the beginning, they didn't have anything. They just had what they had there in the Ukraine, and there would have been no match for Russia. So everyone was assuming, Russia would crush them within days, but that hasn't happened. Not only has that not happened, but Russia hasn't really made any significant advances. It's still, it doesn't, even when it comes to territorial gains, they have gained very little. So it's just, from a tactical perspective, it makes no sense at all. So what's going on here? Was Putin's goal really to invade all of Ukraine? Was that really his goal, and did he just fail at it miserably? He failed miserably if you assume that was his goal. But I don't think that was his goal, and I don't think he's that incompetent. At the beginning, all the Ukrainians have was like Molotov cocktails. Why would they be able to stop Putin's tanks with Molotov cocktails? I mean, that's all they had at the beginning. So why were they able to stop them? Well, maybe because obviously, and everyone has been joking about that, joking about how incompetent the Russian soldiers would be. Maybe that's the crux of the matter. Are Russian soldiers really that incompetent? I mean, they have experience. They had wars before. Even after the Soviet Union, they had. A lot of them do have combat experience. Did they all just suddenly became stupid and became too stupid to handle Molotov cocktails with tanks? No. Maybe it's because Putin hasn't been sending his A-team into Ukraine. Maybe, and that's obviously the case. The really good, experienced soldiers, they're actually still in Russia. The incompetent new recruits, that's whom he is sending into the Ukraine. So now everyone is kind of underestimating him and thinking, everyone is sort of underestimating the Russian army and thinking, they weren't even able to take Ukraine. But were they though? Look at what kind of troops he's really sending into Ukraine. It's mainly volunteers, and that's why the volunteers in Ukraine were able to stop them, because it's volunteers against volunteers. It's not the really professional troops. those he's actually still keeping in Russia. But why? So maybe, and I don't, I don't want to make any predictions because obviously I don't know. But see, if I was Putin, and if my goal, if I had some military objective or some goal, well, that's how I would do it. I would, because this is brilliant, because suppose for a second his actual military goal would not be the Ukraine. I mean, he knows that, and that's what happened, right? Either he takes the Ukraine really fast, or the more time passes, the more the West will supply it, and then it makes no progress like it's the case now. So either he takes the Ukraine really fast, or he can't take it. So was he really incompetent and not able to take it? Or maybe was that his goal along? Because look at what's happened now. Because if I was Putin, and if I had some military objective other than the Ukraine, then that's exactly what I would do. I would attack the Ukraine, but not with my A-team, with the expendables. I would attack the Ukraine with my expendable troops, causing all the West to supply the Ukraine with arms. So all the arms are now in the Ukraine and being used up in the Ukraine. And at the same time, of course, and that's also to be expected, the West is going to put embargoes on Russia. And they're going to stop importing Russian oil, which is what they're doing now. So they're hitting Russia with sanctions, and they're no longer importing Russian oil. So without oil, because you need oil for everything, right? Russia has all the energy. Russia has the oil, the gas. That's all from Russia, at least, when it comes to Europe. Europe is completely dependent on Russia for the oil and gas. Everyone knows that. So what happened now? The West sent all their military equipment into the Ukraine, into basically a meat grinder where it's used up. I mean, they can't produce new weapons. Why? Because they don't have the energy anymore. Because they're not getting oil and gas and energy and resources from Russia anymore. And they're not getting food from Ukraine anymore. So they don't have the resources to replenish their supply of weapons. So the West is now in a very vulnerable position where all their weapons are being used up in the Ukraine, and they're not in a position to produce new weapons because they lack the energy, because Russia is not supplying them with energy anymore. So if I wanted to attack the West, or attack any whatever country is my actual goal, that's what I would do. I would first attack the Ukraine, do what Putin did. Then that would leave the West in an extremely vulnerable position, and then I can attack whatever my actual goal is.